Camera, action.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another review, and today we're going to be talking about Spider-Man Brand New Day. So this movie pretty much follows Peter Parker right where No Way Home left off. He's very alone and isolated now, so he's on his own. So while he's dealing with all that, he starts to realize that something is going on with his powers, while there's also some huge threat out there now that's going to be the new big bad of this movie. So just to set the stage, I haven't been huge on a lot of Marvel movies really since No Way Home. I felt like, Endgame and No Way Home was kind of like the no pun intended, but the end game for me. I said it more in my Thunderbolts review that I did last year. That's really the only Marvel movie that I really reviewed on this channel because I just really liked that movie. It really surprised me. So if you want to check out my review for that, I'll leave a card somewhere up here. But while I thought Thunderbolts was a huge surprise, I thought some of the other Marvel stuff was just all right. Like, to me, Fantastic Four was okay. I'm not really caught up in most of the MCU TV shows like I used to be. So I'm just not as hyped for Marvel movies as I once was. Like, even the Doomsday trailer, I was kind of like, I don't know, man. I'm going in with expectations, some tempered expectations, but I'm hoping for the best. But with Spider-Man's always been one of my favorite MCU characters. If he's not my favorite MCU character, him and Daredevil was kind of my introduction to this world. So I enjoyed the three John Watts movies. I thought they were really good. I thought they were fun for that era. That was more of the high school Spider-Man, and those were more of coming-of-age movies. So this movie really feels like the Spider-Man movie that I have wanted for so long. So jumping right into my positives for Spider-Man, I love this version of him. I think this is the version that I've longed for, that I've always enjoyed, but I've loved the journey to get here. While I have really enjoyed the other three movies, like I said, they haven't been my favorite Spider-Man movies. But after seeing this one, I've loved the journey of watching Peter Parker grow as a high schooler and becoming this version of Spider-Man that we've always known and loved, where now he's really on his own. Nobody remembers him anymore. He has to do everything on his own. He's very isolated from everybody. And he's going through things that, most young adults go through, but it also has to deal with a lot of isolation and just being alone. And he carries that very well, and it just fits the tone of this movie, where it feels like we're out of that coming-of-age story now, and we're in the adulthood version, so it feels more adult overall. I also love that he's actually able to get his own type of suit in this movie. I love the look of the suit. I think it works very well. It kind of looks like he took like homages from maybe like Toby and Andrew's version of their suits in No Way Home and kind of blended them together with his version. So it's kind of cool. I love the look of the suit. I think it looks great. And I love the fact that, like I said, it's a suit that he made. He's trying to figure all this out himself. And it's a thing to where it just feels so much tonally like it leans into what Spider-Man is and what the Spider-Man that we've always known. Like the ones for me, like I grew up with Sam Raimi's, so it felt there was a lot of feelings of those type of movies in this one, and that's something that I really appreciated and took away from it. But I love the look of the suit. I love that he incorporated, kind of like I said, elements of the other Spider-Man into his. And it's just nice to see him in a normal, shiny red and blue suit again. It didn't have to be the Tony Stark version of the suit or the, robotic version of the suit or anything like the Iron Spider or anything. It was just so cool to see him in a traditional, everyday comic book looking suit again. And another thing I really love about this movie is I love the fact that we actually get Spider-Man in New York, and we get to utilize that setting of New York, which is something I feel was really missing from the other movies. In this one, it is so nice to see Spider-Man actually swinging from buildings and jumping off things and utilizing his web swinging and just going through New York and the fighting and the villains and all that stuff throughout New York. It just felt classic Spider-Man to me, and I'm so happy that they were able to finally utilize just the setting of New York alone, because I feel like that's just what makes Spider-Man Spider-Man, and I really capture that damn near perfect in this movie. I even really love all the villains that we get in this movie. There's kind of an homage to villains we haven't seen before in the MCU, and kind of callback homages and whatnot throughout. And even some comic book ones that I wasn't expecting that was in this movie as well that I thought was really cool. So I loved how they utilized the villains, and they didn't feel like they were, I mean, some of them were. Some of them I felt like, especially one character in particular, I felt one was there specifically just to be like, oh, that's cool. That's a comic character. That's really cool to see. But other ones, it was cool to see them actually in a live-action Spider-Man movie. So that was really cool because I've always felt that Spider-Man really has one of the best rosters of villains that are out there. So to see some utilized that we don't really get to see all that much was really cool. That is one other thing I really loved about the John Watts trilogy, is that we got to see a little bit of different villains that we didn't get to see. It wasn't just Green Goblin and Doc Ock and all that. You know, you had like Vulture and Mysterio, which was really cool. And of course, you know, you got them all brought back in the third movie. But, you know, even in this one, we get to see a little bit of Scorpion, which he's in the trailer, so no spoiler. But, you know, it is cool to see him utilized. And I think the look of him and the suit and all that stuff, the little bit we do get of him, I think is really well done and just really great overall. He's a character going forward, I would like to see more of. One of the other things I really enjoyed about this movie, which honestly really shocked me, was the how they utilized the other Marvel characters that were in this movie. You know, you had like Punisher and Hulk, which obviously was in the trailer, although I wish neither one of them was in the trailer. But that being said, I like how they utilized them, is that they were set in the story for a reason. They weren't just in here to be, oh, it's cool, we got to have some connective tissue somewhere, so let's just randomly throw these characters in here. They were in there for a specific reason, and their reason served the story and to push the narrative of the story going forward. So I really love that, and I love the fact that they weren't just these glorified cameos. They were, like I said, they weren't in there for just 5 seconds to be like, oh yeah, there's our connective tissue and move on. They really had some stakes in the story, and everything that they needed them there for was very relative to the story. And that's something that really, really shocked me. Even like on terms of like how they use the Punisher, for example. I'll get more into him later, but I really was surprised of how they used him and how much more he was in the movie than what was marketed. So I am grateful that they didn't market too much of that. But I do like what his purpose is in this movie overall. And it was cool to see a new side of the Punisher that we haven't seen before, which could go either way, but like I said, I'll get more into that a little bit later. Something that they did in this movie, which is something they did very well in No Way Home, which I was really thankful about, is that they know where to insert the comedy. When it comes to these more serious moments, they learn to let stuff breathe a little bit, and Marvel's kind of bad at not letting, you know, a serious moment be a serious moment in certain parts. And I felt like for this Spider-Man movie and the last one, they did very good at that. So in this one, they know where to insert the comedy, but there is places where it needs to be serious and kind of heartfelt and pull at your heartstrings a little bit. And they pull that off very well. But like I said, they don't go the route of inserting comedy into it. They do a good job of knowing where to place the comedy. So I'm grateful that they chose to go that route, because that was my biggest worry really going into No Way Home. But thankfully, even with that movie, with all of the big emotional moments, they really let those moments breathe. And I'm so grateful that they brought that over into this movie as well, because there are certain moments in this one as well as the last one that I feel like as an audience member, you really needed to feel and live in that moment. And I'm so grateful that Marvel let that moment be a serious moment. And honestly, I really enjoyed the director, the guy who directed this movie, Destin Daniel Cretton. He's the one that did Shang-Chi a few movies back. And that was a really good movie for me. I really enjoyed that movie. But I liked what he was able to bring to this movie. I felt like he was able to really hone in on action sequences that we've never seen before, especially in the last 3 movies. He was able to hone in on those and make them really his own thing, and to take something different from the John Watts movies and bring it over and to also make that his own thing. But that's with the style of shooting, the way they go about shooting the action sequences. And like I mentioned earlier about even the swinging sequences, we barely got any of those in the last 3 movies. And he nails that in spades in this movie. And when it comes to the action sequences are really well done. This is a guy, I think he really knows how to really shoot action, and I think to see him do like a full-fledged action movie would be really cool, because I think it's something that he could really handle. But the way that things were really handled in this movie with all of that, I think, like I said, he just did a really great job. And it makes me wonder that I'm really kind of happy that they chose to really get a different director. Or I can't remember if John Watts just didn't want to return again. I don't remember all the behind-the-scenes stuff. I remember at the moment when it happened, but I can't remember now. It's been so long ago. But I'm kind of glad that they went in the direction that they did with this director, because I don't know if John Watts really would have brought that flavor to this movie. Not saying that he couldn't, but I'm all of 3 of his movies are kind of similar with how they feel. So it was nice going into this more adult version of Spider-Man with a different director who kind of brought all of that on board with him. But like I said before, really, really diving into those themes of adulthood and being alone and being isolated and being that hero that he knows he needs to be. But like while watching his friends, move on with their life and how everything just kind of, they went on to live normal lives, and now he's kind of stuck in this position. So he's trying to really cope with that and trying to figure that out while really missing who he used to be. And I feel like that's something that's really relatable with people. I think that's why people love Spider-Man so much. I feel like he is one of the most relatable superheroes, and that's something that I really enjoyed about the movie. I really, love that they brought that into the movie, and I think Tom Holland and really did a great job of portraying and really going through that. You can see the turmoil that he's going through, and I just think it adds a really cool layer to this already more of a serious movie. I really like the direction that they went with the story and other characters. I'm not going to get into much of the other characters because I know a lot of it is kept secret, so I don't want to give anything about that away. But I do love the direction that they went with certain characters and what they did with Sadie Sink's character and how she brought stuff to her performance. I feel like she did a really good job. I think all the performances are top-notch in this movie. I honestly think that as much as I love Tom Holland, I think Sadie Sink really kind of steals the scenes that she's in. But without a doubt, Tom Holland and Sadie Sink are really the heartbeats of this entire movie. So both of them do a really great job together with what they're trying to portray and what they're given. Same with our side characters. It is good to have Ned and MJ back. They're still there. They're still a lot of fun with that little bit of camaraderie we get with them, and I'll get more into them into my mixed aspect. But to have them back in here kind of playing this story, I felt like it was necessary to have them in this movie for a particular reason because of the stuff that Peter is going through. So it makes sense to kind of bring that back for him to try to find some kind of closure and all that, and to try to figure out, it's just something in his life he just needs to figure out. So they did a really good job with that and how they handled all that. But I was a really big fan of how they were able to actually keep the tonal balance throughout this entire movie. Like I said before, I love the fact that it still feels like that fun action adventure Spider-Man movie that everybody can go and love and have a good time with, while also mixing it and having those great elements of more of an adult and more of a serious, darker tone to it, while also being funny at times. They find really a great balance between all that. There's a lot of great camaraderie between Tom Holland and John Bernthal as their characters. There's a lot of great back and forth between other characters that I don't want to get into. But they do find that great balance where a lot of that can be kind of dangerous because you can either go too much in one direction or too much in the other. And I felt like with this movie, they did find that perfect balance to where nothing feels like anything else. Like, oh, it's too comedic. Oh, it's too dark. Oh, it's too this. Although I did see where apparently there are parents complaining because there's too much shirtless Tom Holland, and there's this other scene that has nothing to do with... It's ridiculous. Like, it still feels like a fun, everyday Spider-Man movie. So I'm just so over people complaining to complain. It's on my last nerve at this point. But this just feels like just like I said, just like an everyday Spider-Man movie. But they were able to find those tones and those balances between the more adult and dark, side of it, while having that fun, humorous side as well. I think the whole element of Peter dealing with this whole thing with him as well, with his body changing, like his powers are leaning way more into the arachnid side of stuff that's going on. So him trying to figure out how to control that, because we see at one point in the movie how far that can really go, and you can tell that really kind of bothers him. So that mixed in with the stuff that he's already dealing with and going through, it really adds more of this turmoil to this character. So while he's dealing with all this stuff, I think, like I said, as an audience member, you really feel everything that he's going through. And obviously we care about this character, so we want to see him, make the right choices and figure out what's going on with him. But I think that little element that they added in with that was a really cool thing that they did that I don't think they've ever touched on in any of the other movies. So I thought that was a really cool little thing to add into this, because it can show you, it kind of teases how far and how powerful Spider-Man really can be, because Spider-Man has kind of always had to pull his punches when it came to stuff like that. So it is really cool to see him go into more of that darker bit for a little bit. So that is, like I said, it just added another cool element to the movie, and it just kind of pushed it in that different direction, like I said, that leaned it more into feeling more adult and different than the previous three. Now moving on to some of my mixed elements, and one I want to talk about is the Punisher. This is more of a nitpick mixed element, I guess, because I did enjoy a lot of it. I enjoyed it way more than I did. My biggest worry going into this movie was that I found out the Punisher was going to be in it. Now, I know in the comic books that's a huge, huge thing of them two being together, but seeing everything that, John Bernthal has brought to the character of the Punisher and how brutal and ruthless he is, I was like, there is no way in hell that is going to really transfer to a Spider-Man movie. They did find a way to make a pretty good balance of it. Like I said, I was expecting not to like that element of it at all, and I did enjoy it. And I did like their camaraderie. I thought the two of them had great chemistry together. I know they're really close friends in real life. Not only is the chemistry of Peter and Frank really good, but you also have the chemistry of Tom and John as well. And I think that they capture that so well. And they have great back and forth. It creates a lot of the comedy of the movie, but they did go about finding a way to keep Frank kind of censored in certain parts to where he wasn't as off the rails as he was in previous, shows and whatnot, but they did do a good balance of that. They did a good job of figuring out how to censor him and make him not so as he would be in the Punisher show. He still has that grit and that bit about him, but I felt like he was turned up just to be a little bit too comedic, and I don't feel like that's really in his nature as a character. And like I said, I'm not saying this is why it's mixed for me, because there's certain things I really loved about it and certain things I was kind of like, all right, I don't really feel it, but I get what you're going for. I can see him having this relationship with Spider-Man, but I cannot see him being like overly comedic like he was in the movie. Like I said, he kind of came off as too comedic. I feel like there's a balance, and while they got the balance right with pretty much just about everything else in this movie, I felt like he was turned up just a little bit too much to kind of make him more friendly and kid-friendly, while also being able to keep that, element of who he is back in the show and the Frank Castle that we all know. But like I said, I just wish they were kind of able to balance that out a little bit more. It was really cool to see him have this relationship with Spider-Man as the movie went on, to see how he kind of, really grew to care for him and stuff like that. Because it's a side of Frank that we haven't seen in anything since really the beginning of the show, where, he lost his family and everything. So he's been very grizzled and just black-hearted, and he's going to kill you no matter what. And this one, it was cool to see that side of him. So that part was fine. I loved seeing this whole dynamic of where he was actually able to show that he cared for somebody else. I think that was a really great thing that we needed, so we didn't just keep doing the wash, rinse, repeat of that character over and over again. But that element of it I loved. I just wish they turned his humor down just a little bit, because I didn't feel like that fit the characters as much, but I still really enjoyed what they did with it. The other things in this movie are really kind of more worries than they are mixed or negatives. They're kind of more of my personal worries, and one being is, as much as I love seeing Ned and MJ in these movies, I don't know how much longer they're going to be able to stretch them out. I feel like for this movie, like I said, this movie was crucial. It was a crucial way for Peter to really kind of figure out how to find closure and to go about his way to find what he needs to know and to really say what he needs to say to these characters and how to go about saying it to these characters. So I felt like that was a really, they were really pivotal to this movie. But going forward, I don't know how you're going to be able to implement them more into it without feeling so forced and stretched out. I would really like to see Peter go on to maybe see the other characters, his other love interest and friends, about, maybe Harry Osborn in Tom Holland's universe would be cool, or Gwen Stacy, for example, or maybe even throw in some of the other girlfriends that he had in the comics that we've never seen in live action before. I think that would be really cool, just to kind of explore new avenues with that, because I just don't see... I feel like this movie kind of wrapped them up kind of damn near perfect. So I don't really see how you could really bring them back into the fold. And I just don't want Marvel to put them in there for the sake of having them in there because they're popular characters. I kind of want them to kind of move on and explore other opportunities of Peter's life. The only other mixed or worry that I really have about this movie is that I feel like now that we finally have gotten the Spider-Man that we've wanted with this Tom Holland universe, is that I've heard rumors and stuff that Tom Holland won't be back to do another one, or he's kind of wanting to step down from the role and kind of, give it to somebody else, which I totally understand. It's been a long period of your life. But I'm kind of worried now, because if he does decide to do that and then have to pivot in another direction, I'm kind of scared where it's going to go. I don't want to see another Spider-Man origin story. I don't want to see another Ned and MJ or anything like that with new characters. I'm curious to see where they would go, but I would love to see a continuation of this movie, because I'd like to see where Tom would go from here. I'd like to see which I know probably he's going to be in Doomsday and Secret Wars and all that stuff, But as for a solo outing, I would like to see more of where his character will go and evolve from this movie, because I'm just curious if they can recapture that same feeling of, oh, this is another Spider-Man movie like they did in this one. So like I said, that's just more of a worry. I don't know what the future holds when it comes to Tom Holland, but I really hope that he decides to at least do maybe one more solo Spider-Man movie, since we did finally get the Spider-Man that I've always wanted from this character. My only real negative I have about this movie is that really there's just some wonky CGI here and there. I mean, obviously you have to have CGI in to have Spider-Man doing Spider-Man stuff. I mean, I know Tom Holland does a lot of his own stunts, but a few times there's a little wonky CGI. But other than that, I mean, it's a solid, really good Spider-Man movie. So if you've been kind of mixed on Marvel movies like myself for the last couple years, I feel like this is a strong outing in the cinematic universe going forward. I really kind of hope they keep this momentum going, because like I said in the beginning, I have no idea what to expect from Doomsday, but I'm cautiously optimistic.
I'm just a neighbor from across the hall.
Friendly neighbor.
So if you love Spider-Man, I would absolutely say go see this movie. It's a great time at the theater. It's a lot of fun, and like I said, it captures that Spider-Man that we all know and love while having an emotional weight to it that really kind of pulls at your heartstrings and really makes you feel something. And it's something that I felt like was missing from the other movies up until maybe the death of Aunt May in No Way Home. But this one kind of delivers that multiple times in this movie, which is something that I really wasn't expecting. That was a nice surprise. So it has all that in it, plus your great adventure, action, fun Spider-Man adventure movies that have always been there. So if you're a big Spider-Man fan, absolutely go check this one out. So thank you, everybody. That is my review for Spider-Man Brand New Day. If this is the review that you're finding me on, I typically do more like horror movie stuff, or I try to do like smaller indie movies, so it's very rare that I do a Marvel movie. So that kind of, is for you. Please come over and check out the channel. I'd love to have you over here. I will leave a card for all my other 2026 reviews somewhere right here for you to check out. And I would love to know, what is your favorite Spider-Man movie? What is your ranking of your Spider-Man movies? I would love to know that. Let me know that down below. And as always, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. That way I can see all of you lovely people in the next one. Thank you so very, very much.